Hi, guys, and welcome back to Too Much. Today, still in LA, first of all. I have spaced out all of my LA episodes, so I'm not sure when you're seeing this or if you know that this is clearly not my normal studio, but I am across the country in La La Land. I've never said that a day in my life, but I'm in LA. And I have a very, very, very special guest that you guys have actually requested come on the show. So I am honored and humbled that she is here with me today. We have dating and relationship coach, podcaster, soon to be author, Sabrina Zohar.
Hey girl, hey.
Hey,
I'm so excited to be here and congratulations on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and congratulations on all your success.
I'm excited we get to share.
Yes. If you guys aren't familiar with Sabrina's podcast, it's called The Sabrina Zohar Show. It's incredible. She also does dating and relationship coaching on the side. Not on the side. That's like it's all on the same platform.
It's a hobby, right?
Yeah. I'm like, I can't even call that a side hustle. You're just hustling all over the board. But you have been like just such an established presence in the dating and relationship world and the podcasting world on social media. Like I have always admired you and all of your advice. Also, we are like kindred spirits, having lived in New York. We are fast talkers. We like to curse. We like to give it to you straight.
Yes.
So that is one of the many reasons why I'm so happy to have you here today.
Likewise, man. I remember the first time we met instantly. I remember we're leaving, telling Ryan, I'm like, no, we get it. Like, it's a thing.
Yes.
So I'm really fucking stoked. And I'm excited to help anybody who needs it because Lord knows I was the girl that was too much. Probably still am the girl that was too much. But like, let's embrace that and celebrate instead of trying to knock ourselves down for it.
It's a badge of fucking honor.
It really is.
It is.
It is.
Proud. Say it proud and loud. We're happy to be too much.
Earn that shit.
Yeah. So today, what I would love to chat with you about is something that a lot of audience members have been writing in about and things that like I know I struggled with in the past and also what I see my friends kind of going through right now. And it is the idea of hope and clinging to hope in relationships, in dating, and not only in the dating phase and hoping for the best, but also once you're in a relationship, hoping for change, hoping for something to happen, for a potential to fulfill itself or something like that. So I would love to just go down the rabbit hole. That's what we like to say here and kind of get just your hot take off the bat of how that shows up in relationships, how you've seen it showing up in dating, the good and the bad, why it can be healthy, why it can be toxic.
Totally. I think it's really valid because I think a lot of us, who taught us any of this, right? There's no rubric, there's no blueprint. And I'll never forget when I was with my really shitty ex, like the toxic one that kind of ruins you that like you're never going to forget. And I was at my friend's house and they had been married for millennia. And he said, tell me what you like about so-and-so. And I said, I like this. And I said, but, and he stopped me and he's like, and we're done here. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, part of being in a relationship is that there's no buts. He was like, you accept your partner as they are. And if you're hoping that they're going to change, I need to ask you what you're doing here. I remember just kind of being like, whoa, wait, holy shit, he's right?
Yeah.
Like kind of just having a moment. And I think there are three different lenses that I want to kind of talk about hope through. So there's like the three pillars, how I put it. There's the neuroscience lens. And if we're looking at it kind of from the brain, what's happening in your brain, when you have hope, which is such a beautiful thing, right? I hope. But oftentimes when we say I hope, what we really say is like, I don't necessarily know that I believe. And when you don't actually believe it in your gut, like if I don't believe that my partner is going to be the person for me, but I hope that they're going to, well, that I'm betting on a potential and I have no proof and facts to back that up. But what happens in the neuroscience lens of it is when we hope, you're actually releasing dopamine. And you're in the anticipation of. Now, dopamine is part of our brain that is in anticipation of. It's a reward drug. So I think a lot of people think, oh, when I get it, that's the dopamine. It's like, no, it's released when you're waiting for it. So every time you're hoping for more, you're releasing dopamine in your brain, which gets you chemically addicted to the person that you're dating. So right off the bat, one thing that I always like to do is start to even just question and sit with yourself for a minute of, am I basing this off of a fantasy or a reality? Because I need it for me, right? I don't know about whoever is listening here, whatever everybody's age is, but like Disney fucking lied to us.
Oh my God, don't even get me fucking started.
You know what's funny? Writing the book right now, one chapter I even put in there and I was like, here's the funny thing. When it comes to like happily ever after, it's like, and what happened to Prince Eric? Like, did he have a drinking problem? You know what I mean? Like what happened to him after, right? He couldn't even fucking figure out her face. He had to use a shoe to figure out Cinderella. How do you think the relationship went? Did Belle change the beast or was it Stockholm Syndrome? And she ended up just being caged in this house for the rest of her life. And we think about it as they're going to save me. And that's the second kind of pillar I was going into, was when we think about it from like a psychological perspective, which, you know what, fuck it, we'll make it two pillars. There's two main things. Inner child IFS, when we really hope, what that actually does is it keeps us and it protects us. It's a protector part that actually stops us from grieving and facing the reality of things. So if we hope and we I pray and I wish and I really hope that this person changes and all of those things. Now, there's a difference between I hope that this person realizes something, right? And that can happen. Or how many times we've all had the come to Jesus moment of like, wow, I realized what I said was really hurtful and I apologize. Versus, I hope that this person's going to become somebody that they're just not.
Yeah.
And we're not actually accepting the person. And to be fair, I don't think that's fair to either partner. Because I wouldn't want someone that wants me to change, would you?
No. Yeah, there's a big difference between hope and optimism.
Yes.
I think everyone wants to think that the best could happen. I deserve the best. This could be a possibility because I'm a good person. I deserve this. But then there's I'm going to cloud the actual reality and actually what's going on and just live in la la land.
As we are.
Yeah.
And I think the difference, even when you'd ask like, what's a healthy versus that unhealthy, where we go, I think what we have to look at is bandwidth. Okay, would I want someone to come to me and say, man, I hope Sabrina starts to speak slower and doesn't curse anymore. And it's like, so you're not accepting me for who I am.
Right.
You want me to become a different version. Versus, I really hope like this person that's emotionally unavailable, I hope that they choose me. And it's like, again, are we seeing things from a place of reality? Does that person have the bandwidth to make these changes that you're hoping that they're going to make? Or are we really just coming at it from a little inner child that's saying, if I just put my needs aside and maybe if I'm just a good girl or boy or a good them, right? If I just behave, then I'll get what I want. And that's part of the holding on to hope, means that we're not actually processing and grieving the reality for what it is. And sometimes that means that person doesn't have the tools or the bandwidth to step up and be the person that you need.
Jesus fucking Christ. We're like 3 minutes into the episode. It's like,
you're like, well, that was fun.
Yeah, I'm like, and that's a wrap. No, but you were so right on every single thing that you said. And it brings up this thought to me of like, when you're starting to date someone and there are the buts. There are things that you wish were different, but you're maybe staying in it because you have this fear of being alone. And that fear of being alone is like at odds with desire for connection. Like there's a very big difference there. But then there's also this hope that immediately happens just by meeting someone. That's the part where I feel so many people struggle with, where it's like, I met this guy at a bar. Yeah. I got his number. I'm hoping he's going to text me, and they just sit by their phone and they wait and they wait. They already, in the moment of meeting them, and I say this was me 1,000 times, already in the second of meeting them, sizing them up, pretending what I think, or like building this fantasy in my mind of, they're probably fucking amazing, putting them up on this pedestal and then being disappointed.
When what happens when you put someone on a pedestal, what you're saying is they're better than me, right? There's an imbalance. They are above me, which makes me below them. And I think there's a difference between optimism, like you said, of like, well, this would be really nice. Like I had a great date and I hope I see this person again. And if I don't, that's okay too, because we're able to hold the two conflicting thoughts. But I think where the hope, what you described really beautifully, was that's that I'm going to fuck this up. Dopamigenic. God damn it. I can't do That's the dopamine reward system at play right now. Like, right, I gave my number and I'm sitting here in anticipation of, because then I'd be curious, right, if we could even tap into Lil Emma. What was the narrative and the story she was creating in that space, right? Who was this person? What was he going to satisfy? There's something called whitewashing, right? The halo effect, where it's, let's say you go on a date and the person that you're with is just like nice to the waiter, right? Well, that's fucking baseline, bare minimum. And then all of a sudden you're like, they're amazing. Oh my God, they must be a philanthropist. And they're the kindest, right? We whitewash and we completely overconflate because we've seen one thing we like about this person. All of a sudden they're the Dalai Lama and they're everything we've wanted. But the problem is, and that's where I go back to, I ask that question, what are the facts do I have to back this up? First one. Second one, this is a favorite of mine. How old do I feel? Doesn't it sound like a teenager? Oh my God, Mom, I met him. Oh my God, he was so cute. And it was the boy that came into school and he was just so cool. And he's going to be my husband. And your parents are like, that's really cute. You're 13. It sounds like a teenager. It sounds like a little kid that's like, this is going to be the one. And he's going to do this. And we want to look at what's the story we've created about this person. And then what facts do we have to back that up?
Jesus, I've done that. I've done that until like literally last year.
Oh, same.
This just reminded me of a story of what happened to me where I could not have whitewashed a person more. And this just like goes to show, I don't know if you know this story. This is kind of a big story about me that had gone viral once before, but essentially I was in college. I was a senior in college. So I was, 22 years old, and I was out down on Stone Street in New York, which if you don't know New York, that is where the finance boys go. That's the watering hole for the finance boys. But I was 22, so like a 28-year-old was an adult to me. And I see this guy, and he's in a suit, and he was with all these people, and I just like see him working the room, and everyone is kind of like fawning over him. And I was like, oh my God, this guy looks like the man. We make eyes, we start talking. I immediately saw my future. I was like, oh, this guy is like husband material. Then I start talking to the people around him, and I find out that he owns this company and that these are his employees, and he was taking all of his employees out. And I was like, done. Where do I sign?
Exactly.
So into it. I ended up going home with him that night, which was only like 2 hours later kind of a thing. So I spent 2 hours knowing this person. I stayed the night, wake up the next morning. He's like, I got to go to work, babe. You take your time. You let yourself out, enjoy yourself, have a whole morning. So I'm like, oh my God, like what is happening? Thought I hit the jackpot. Apartment was nice. It was in like the West Village. And I was literally on like cloud 9, and I had gotten his number, and I was just sitting in his bed, and something in me was just like, I'm going to Google him. I just want to like see what company he owns or like whatever. Lo and behold,
oh boy,
he was a fucking murderer.
Oh boy. What happened?
He murdered someone.
Potential, ladies. Potential. You can change him. You can change.
And I'm like, but he could be a really nice guy. But I'm sure there was a good reason. No,
yeah, I was gonna say maybe they just really pissed him off.
Yeah,
right? They caught him on a bad morning.
He. Let me say this for TikTok. He unalived someone with a pew pew in their face, point blank, over a digital camera, and he came from this is what I got from the article, that he came from a very affluent family, and he was like a white young guy, and he only served 8 years in jail.
Holy shit.
And then I slept with him.
And then you met him, and you could have been next. I know. That's what's crazy.
The potential just cloud. I literally was like, I don't care what this man has done in his past. I don't care about anything. I just had a dream.
Honestly, I keep saying, I'm like, I want to be on Netflix, but not in a fucking documentary.
Yeah.
Right?
Not in true crime.
That's not how I want to go out, is like by somebody murdering me. I've had those situations. I've had it where I've matched guys online, and I Googled and I found out like they had an R allegation or something really severe that you're like, holy shit. Or how many times you've heard these stories of like, they're amazing and everybody loves them. And then they're like, they snap, or they have these really dark pasts. And that's why I understand, and I used to be here. I lived in New York for 12 years. You and I, we ran probably the same very similar circles, where you meet somebody, and at least I can speak for myself, right? If we have the too much wound, typically what comes with the other side? Too much, not enough. So typical, right? Like child of a narcissist. Hey, how you doing? That comes because from 0 to 7 is called egocentric age. And when you have a caregiver who can't handle your needs, who can't show up for you in the ways that you need, you're going to vacillate between I'm too much, there's something wrong with me, or I'm not enough. Why can't I get their attention? Why won't they stay with me? And so how's that going to manifest in our adult lives? One, we don't trust ourselves. We don't have a proper reading of the room. When you have, for me, my father was the man I avoid. He was the fucking playboy. He's the one who's in his 70s now dating 25-year-olds. Like, my dad is that person. But of course it was familiar to me. So the patterns replayed itself. And so meeting these people where you're like, oh my God, they must be amazing. We have no idea who these people are. And anybody can be on their best behavior for months, if not even a couple of years. And I watched a documentary on that last night.
Which documentary?
It's called Toxic. It's a new one. And he came in and he was so charming and amazing. And he kept pushing her to get married. They get married. She falls very sick. All of a sudden, she can't figure it out. None of the doctors understand. Turns out, then all of a sudden, she goes to him one day and he attacks her. He cuts himself everywhere and says, "You're going to hurt. I'm going to make sure people think that you killed me." Goes bananas, ruins the house and everything, haunts this woman for years. And she finds out he had been drugging her the whole time to keep her sick so that she would be dependent on him. Now,
Munchausen by proxy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to scare everybody that's listening to be like, oh, great. So that's it.
We just took this from hope to Munchausen by proxy and sleeping with murderers. So
Perfect.
We're like, stop hoping. There is no hope. Just kidding, guys. We're going to show you why there is still hope.
There is hope. And there's so, because
stay with us.
Please. No, everyone's like, and I'm done.
Yeah.
But I think to our point, look, both of us exist. Which means, and every person that's listening exists, which means there are other good people that exist. And I think having hope is such a beautiful thing, but I think hope also needs to intersect with reality. Because for me, at least, what was I taught growing up? Like a very clear message that if a man doesn't take care of you, he's not worth anything. And he has to be the quote unquote the provider, and he has to pay for everything. Like that was very much drilled into my head. And I kind of fought that growing up. I was like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's, look, dad, you do that and look who I have to deal with. And so I always hoped and oh, they're going to come in and save me, until I realized one day, like, no, bitch, that's your job. You have to save you. You have to take care of you. And when I finally stopped waiting for somebody else to do that, I was able to meet a partner that, albeit now works for me. So there is the irony of it, of like, cool. So tables have turned. But instead of looking at it as, I hope that it's going to be this magical, visceral, this creature that's going to come out of the lagoon and he's just going to be this thing, what I really saw was, I don't hope, I believe. I believe that the right person's out there for me. I believe that someone can love me and hold space for me and not think I'm too much. I believe that because why? I believe I'm worthy and deserving of it. And I feel like when we do I hope, it's really that I don't believe, and I'm praying, because I do that too. Mm-hmm. I'll text my mom. She'll be like, Sab, I know something's coming for you. And I'll say, I hope, Mom. And she'll always say, no, Sab, I know. And I need you too.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like the crux of this whole entire thing is hope is not a bad thing, but when hope is overshadowed by a fantasy, then you're not actually matching reality. And then that's why you're going to be constantly disappointed, because that perfect person doesn't exist.
Right. And I love what you said of like, is this what I think their potential is, or is this just what I want for myself? And I think for me, it was a lot about financial and what are they going to give me and where are they going to take me and all of these things. And it's like, but Emma, you're capable of providing that for yourself. And these voids that we have, or the things that we want so badly, like just relying on someone else to give that to you is so scary. And it's unstable, obviously, because it's like, they could leave, they could walk out, they could start to give it to you, but then poof, it's gone. So it's like you're better being stable and being that person providing it for yourself, and then having someone else fill your cup further, or like overflow your cup.
100%. My mom always says they're an addition to, not instead of.
Right.
Someone is an addition to your life, they are not instead of. So what does that mean? That I need to take care of myself. And I always like to say this. Here's my favorite way to describe what I'm looking for in a partner. I am the founder of my company and I'm looking to hire the CEO. Now, the CEO could bring me to a Fortune 500 and make me a fucking billionaire. They could bring me down into the ground and I could lose everything. Am I going to give that position to somebody after knowing them for a couple of weeks? Am I going to have an interview with someone and go, well, I really hope they could do it. I really hope that they can run this business. No, motherfucker, I'm going to make sure you can. I'm going to watch and see and assess to make sure that you match what I need you to match. And that's how I want people to take dating. It's not a job interview, but we have to look at it as, no. I have a full, robust, amazing life. And I want to see if you're going to add to that. And if you're not, then it's going to be like a bank account. If I'm not adding in the green, then I'm in the red. And then I'm losing too much because my needs will never be met.
Right. Drives me nuts when people are always like, oh, my other half or whatever. It's like, you need to be whole. And then someone can add to that. You could be 1.5. You never have to be just one. You could be full and then more, So I think where people are searching and reaching for change and searching and reaching for potential is because they're experiencing inconsistency with a person. So where do you think it's getting confusing for people to not identify these patterns and confuse the inconsistencies with a hope?
Oh, okay. Now bear with me on this one because it's a little bit of a convoluted answer, but it makes sense. So when we're talking through that lens of IFS, like internal family systems, which I love, like if anyone has ever said a part of me, that's IFS. So we have a million different parts. And I think what I really see, especially with this, I hope, and the potential and all of that, I see that a lot of the times with the anxious people, right? With somebody that has a lot of anxiety, it doesn't have to be anxious attachment, right? But it might be somebody that has an insecurity sometime along the way. And what I hear when I hear of this, like I hope and I pray and they're going to be this, and this idealization of somebody that's very clearly showing you that they're not, someone who's being inconsistent. The hot take here is they're not actually confusing you. They're just not being what it is that you want them to be. And so we're giving this importance, but I'm confused and I don't understand. It's like, you're not. This person's very clearly showing you that they're not. But here's where it becomes a little, is that when, okay, again, bear with me. When we're talking about like IFS and parts and stuff, so we have two different parts of the brain that we really got to vacillate between. We have the prefrontal cortex, which is that right now where we are. You feel safe, you feel comfortable, we're using logic, we can, think and blah, blah, blah. If a person with a knife came up right now, or it's in LA, it's not that uncommon. If somebody came up right now with a knife, you and I would go into our amygdala, the part of our brain completely on the other side of our head. That is the fear-based center where it's just survive. Your prefrontal cortex goes offline. And when that happens and you don't have that cognitive processing and thinking, your brain goes into default of they're not safe or I'm exhausted. I can't do this anymore. Let's do what they've always done. And so when we think of these parts, right, again, if I were to say, how old do I feel if I'm saying, well, they're being really inconsistent and they're not really giving me what I need and they're being hot and cold and all of this, but maybe he'll change. And maybe because I'm too much and I need to put my needs aside, what I hear is, how old do I sound? Do I sound like a child talking to my parents? Because what ends up happening is when we get dysregulated and you go into that amygdala part of your brain, that's the little child being like, I need to protect them. No one's here to save me. I got to keep them safe. So we go into those old coping mechanisms that are very maladaptive, that aren't working in your adult life. Versus if you regulate your nervous system and come back to choice. What are my choices right now? Okay, you're being inconsistent. So my choices are not that I can change you. My choices are not that I can control you. I mean, you can do it, but good luck. My choices are not to play games, but my choices are I can control what I do. I can make a decision. Does this work for me? And oftentimes that's why I think with that anxiety kind of world that we're in right now, we forget that we have choices because as a child, you didn't. And you're right. What, am I going to go to my father and be like, hey, you're being a dick to me right now? Yeah, I'd be slapped across the face and I'd be put in my room. But I'm not a child anymore. I get to say that doesn't work for me. But oftentimes that goes against our core beliefs because if I don't believe I'm worthy and deserving, then I'm never going to show up as if I am.
Right. So to recap.
Yeah, exactly. In a layman's term.
The maybe is a protection. It's us self-protecting. It's us being like, well, we can't face the reality of this not actually working out in my favor. So we are going to sit here and just keep saying maybe and then end up being disappointed realistically.
I hope because we're not willing to face the reality and grieve. If I hope so much, but I'm not willing to actually face the reality, well, then I'm stuck in that loop of a little kid praying that their parents are going to change and realizing that they're not.
Yeah.
Because that's what I always ask. Anytime a client is like, but maybe, what if? It's like, that's your brain trying to protect you right now because it's overwhelmed by feeling the reality. And I get that. And it's really tough.
Yeah.
And I hold space. How'd that work for your parents? It didn't, right?
Yeah.
They didn't change. Stop wishing that upon the people that you're dating because then what that tells me is you're attaching, you're not connecting.
Totally.
When you
I feel like every time you talk to me, I'm always like, oh my God, you're right. It's all like so true. And I think it stems from the fear of being alone. And it's like people are putting so much pressure on one person. And it's like there are a million out there. Just because that person asks you for your number doesn't mean they're going to be your Prince Charming and save you because you need to save your fucking self, people.
100%. And not to mention too, part of healing, growing, evolving, dating, anything is when you start to set boundaries, when you start to find yourself. What does that mean? You're going to have to learn how to grieve because you're going to lose people. It's not going to work. And we are all adults that have a choice. Yeah. And that is what I want people to remember is you're not a kid. You're not a victim. This isn't like, woe is me. Everyone keeps doing this. It's like, baby, I'm going to say something to you and I'm going to say it to you straight. If you keep dating emotionally unavailable people and you are the common denominator of this pattern, then you are also emotionally unavailable. Right. Because somebody that shows up with depth and the vulnerability that's required will say, this doesn't work for me. No, thank you. I don't need to make this about my worth.
Yeah.
I know. I used to do it all the time. I was her. Oh my God. Maybe I've shared this with you. Maybe I haven't. When I lived in Venice, and I won't say his name, there was this guy, talk about hope and potential. He was like, if I showed you him, you'd be like, yeah, he's cute, right? Like nothing of, this isn't Brad Pitt. This is just like some schmo that I met in the neighborhood. And he was just really big. He had a big YouTube and he had a big following, millions of followers. And at the time I had just started, just moved to LA, knew nobody, had my clothing line, was really struggling to like figure out me and what I'm doing and everything. I think I had DM'd him being like, oh my God, I see you all the time in the neighborhood. And he responded and he followed me and he only followed 400 people out of his million. So I was like, oh, I'm special. And I didn't want to see it for what it was, that this guy was only texting me at night. He was only sending sexy photos. Anytime I tried to have any depth, he would deflect. And really what it came down to is I kept saying, but there's potential and there's hope and maybe. But
I just keep going, we'll get there.
We'll get there because he just needs to know who I am.
Yeah.
You just haven't gotten to know me yet. And once you do, you're going to realize I'm awesome. And what ended up happening was I completely self-abandoned because that person, it's like asking a blind person to see. He couldn't see it. He's still single to this day. It's been 3 years. And what I realized at the time was, oh, wait a minute. What's the narrative I was creating about this person? It was that if he chooses me, what does that say about me? I'm worthy. I'm cool. People will respect me. They'll like me. And here's the spoiler alert. Since then, I have created an entire career that is based on external validation if you look at it, and it still hasn't changed that inner core wound because that wound has nothing to do with any of this external. It has to do with me and what I'm dealing with inside.
Yeah. I always go back to also like when you're able to sit there and say that someone is so special and so amazing, and then the second that you break up or you stop talking, you're able to say they're a piece of shit. You see all their like bad qualities, and it's like you put them up on that pedestal. You made them special because you are special, and you can see the goodness in someone, and you're able to lift someone up and put them there. What I try to tell my friends and people is just do not start them at 100.
No.
They need to build their way up there and prove to you that they're this person, which I even feel like I had the flip side of it when I was single, where I would try to make people fall in love with what I could do and what I could bring to the table before I let them see me, because I thought that I could like catch them. I'm a content creator at heart. It was like I wanted the hook. I wanted to say I can cook, I can clean, like, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was like by the time they did fall in love with me, I sometimes realized that they weren't so shiny.
Mm-hmm.
The time that it takes to actually get to know someone and make them worthy of your love is longer than this like snap judgment time. And it's like you have to give everyone time and have a little bit of a guard up to make sure that, you know, you're not going to be disappointed and have that hope come crumbling down.
Yeah.
That optimism.
That's why I hate this box theory shit. Like, I don't like it personally.
I don't like it at all.
And it's like, listen, sure, I don't really care about the creators who talk about it, but it's such a, first of all, infantile way of thinking of, oh, people just know within one date. They just know the minute. And it's like, you know what? You know when those work out? After the fact. Isn't that cute when I got married that I could say, oh my God, that night I just knew. But I'll be honest. Here's a story. The last time I just fucking knew. Okay. This one is not long, but it's juicy. I had one of those. It was this guy, and he was visiting in New York from LA. The irony, we switched. Or San Francisco. He worked in tech. And he did the like, we matched, and I was like, oh, but you don't live here. No, I'm there all the time. Yeah. You're like, yeah, I never fucking came back. And we go on the date, and he takes me, he's like, you pick anywhere. I said, Bond Street Sushi. And he's like, done. And I was like, okay. I show up, and it's one of those like intoxicating 6-hour dates where like the staff is like, how long you guys been together? And you're like, we just met. As charming, I mean, he's a male Adonis, 6'4". I could have licked his fucking six-pack off. It was insane. This guy was so chiseled. He was just beautiful. And of course, charming and so fun. Oh my God, the red flags were waving. And I was like, it's my favorite color. I don't see it. And so I remember like, we didn't hook up. We like fooled around. And I remember being like, I'm going to be a good girl. I'm not doing this. And he asked me out for dinner like 2 days later. Cool. Then a couple of days later, I remember I'm at work. I was like getting excited to see him that night. And I get a video from him being like, hey, I'm on my way back to California. My work got broken into. I'm so sorry. I really wanted to see you. And it was like, what are you going to do? You're like, okay, well, that sucks. And I was like, did you want to like pursue this? And then of course it was like, you know, we called and text for a little bit and then it kind of fell off and then he got a girlfriend. Fine. We did this cat and mouse game, I think 8 or 9 years, right? Where like every time you're single and you get back in the sphere and then you realize you're like, hey, if it didn't work for 9 years, maybe it's not going to work now. Fast forward to 2023. I moved to San Diego and I'm going to an appointment. I'm not going to say which. I don't want to out the girl. I'm going to an appointment and I'm sitting there and I'm telling her all about this guy. And we're going and we're talking and I'm like, oh God, he was kind of the one that got away, right? And I'm like, oh, but you know, it's in the past. And what are you going to do? And she goes, oh, tell me, what's his name? And I say it and she just stops and she's like, wait a minute.
No.
And it's a very like normal name. So I was like, how did you know? Then all of a sudden she turns white and I was like, what? And I'm like, this guy was like the spark and he was the one. And she starts hyperventilating and she was like, that's the ex I was telling you about that completely broke me and he was a narcissistic piece of shit, and just starts going off.
Holy shit.
Crying hysterically. And I'm like, oh my God. Found out that this guy was like a raging narcissist who was breaking women down. I ended up speaking like 2 other girls that had happened. And all I kept thinking was, all I thought was we had so much potential. Oh, this guy just needs to get to know me. And I fought and I muscled my way through instead of reframing and going, oh my God, the universe had my back. It never allowed this to happen because it wasn't meant to happen.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think we really need to hold on to. You can hope all goddamn day and I can have belief and manifest and all of those things. But when the road is very clearly bumpy, it's like, it's okay to take a different route and say, you know what? I'm not going to fight for this to be mine. It's okay for it to not be. I'm going to be okay that maybe something better is coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, number one, I thought she was going to be like married to him or something. I was so nervous in the bit, like, not that that's any better, but like the fact that he's like a serial narcissist, like absolutely insane. But yeah, like I think this whole idea of what people are like, oh, he's giving me mixed signals. Mixed signals are not mixed. They are very fucking clear. Like that is a signal and it is telling you to go away. There's nothing, the only thing that it's mixing with is your hope and your positivity that you're adding to it. They're hot and cold, and like that's their answer.
100%. Here's the thing. The more we try to understand why, my favorite, Britt Frank, neuropsychotherapist, one of my best friends, her always thing is, instead of asking why, reframe that to I don't like. Because the more we try to focus, why are they sending me mixed signals? Why is he saying this? But why is he doing this? And why is one night he's doing this? What I want you to reframe, I don't like. Okay, what don't I like about that? Well, I don't feel like a priority. Okay, so that's the issue. It's not that he's doing this, that, and the other, or that he's on social media and didn't text you. It's that you don't feel like a priority. Okay, let's go further. What facts do I have to back that up? How old do I feel? Where do I feel that in my body? Because the more we try to focus on them, to your point, mixed signals aren't that confusing. They're a very clear message. You just don't want to accept it. And you don't want to see that mixed signals are a very clear sign for you to move your shit elsewhere. Because if someone's going to confuse you in the dating stage, babe, what do you think is going to happen when you're in a relationship?
Same fucking thing, people.
Same thing, if not worse. Right? If the beginning stages are my audition, this is when I'm wooing, I'm whining, I'm dining, I'm 69ing. What's going to happen when we fuck?
Yeah.
Where are we going? What are we building towards? To your point, when you start at 100, where else are you going to go?
So what do you think about like when someone is starting to see someone and it is amazing, and then there's hope, and then there is that downfall of they ghost or they stop texting, and it's like, but what did I do wrong? But what happened? Because everything was so perfect, and it's like, yeah, what are your take?
My thoughts are 100% that one, that's really human. That's really normal to go and be like, wait, what, did I misread that? Like, am I taking crazy pills? But the second thing is, if you start to attack yourself, then that's where the core wound is. Because it doesn't need to mean anything about you. If somebody's going to come on really strong and then ghost me, what does that say about me versus them? It says more about their behavior, how they handle conflict, how they handle communication, that they're cowardice and can't even just be honest. And then the second thing I'd say is, you're full of shit. It wasn't perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect relationship. We're all human. And there's not one thing on this planet that every person likes. Name one thing. There's nothing. Some fucking jackass will come up and be like, I don't like pizza. And you're like, well, here we go. And so what we have to look at is, one, am I setting boundaries? Did this person, because in the moment when we really want to be chosen and we really want to be picked, we're going to self-abandon and completely overlook things because maybe they're shiny on paper and maybe they brought flowers and they called me every day and they text me every day. But what we don't look at is, what's the depth of these conversations? Did they tell you that after a week they want you to meet their family? Set a fucking boundary and tell them that that's rushing a little bit and you'd like to go slower. They leave, you did yourself a favor because you just weeded them out. And so I would say to anybody, learn your lesson. Because I've had those. Everything was amazing for a month. And then when you actually pick it apart, you start to realize, oh, actually, no, they did this or that felt a little dodgy. And even if it was amazing and perfect and everything, that doesn't mean that it needs to mean anything about you. What it can mean is, that wasn't my person. And we have to reframe. Otherwise, the dating world will literally drive you insane.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a sense of self-gaslighting when those scenarios are playing out?
100%, especially when you know you didn't do anything. Right? And you know what I'm talking about in life, right? In life.
No, it's never happened to me.
In life, when you know your truth and you're like, I don't need to convince you. I'll say it, right? I will say my truth and move on. But oftentimes when we need to over-explain or when we start to ruminate and we start to spiral, you're not processing. You're actually just going back on a loop and you're reaffirming your core beliefs. Where I see is, that's the wounded part. And again, it's really normal that when something ends for you to feel shitty and terrible. And I think that's part of the conversation. You're allowed to feel all of those emotions. Very valid. I don't need you to pretend. I don't need toxic positivity. I don't need you to be like, good vibes only. Oh, fuck them. We don't need to villainize them to make us feel good. What we can do is hold two conflicting thoughts. This feels really crummy and shitty, and I hope I never have to experience this again. But I also know I'm really proud of the way I showed up. Yes, I can learn this. Here's my accountability, radical acceptance of myself and what I had control over, and the rest, I can't own their shit.
Yeah. It's a very powerful place to be able to get to.
Absolutely.
How would you suggest someone get there? I feel like it's an easier said than done thing. So it's like, what is the key to life to get there?
The key to finally being able to accept and not gaslight yourself is that, how do you speak to yourself when no one's around? Are you validating your emotions and feelings? Are you saying, yeah, that was really shitty and I don't appreciate the way that person did that? Or are you speaking to you like all the people that your childhood did? Are you putting yourself down? Are you gaslighting, being like, well, you're fucking stupid and you're an idiot and I can't believe you did this? We all do that. We're all human. And even my partner, when I do that about work stuff, he'll stop me and be like, hey, whoa, I don't like the way you're talking to yourself. That sounds like your dad. And we have to be cognizant and aware of even just a small thing of, oh, whoa, that's a word, right? Let's say it's stupid or dumb or moron or whatever, right? Whatever your word is, maybe that's what it does, where you signal, whoa, I'm doing it again. Whose voice is that? And it's just starting that awareness and then starting to validate, yeah, this would make me really hurt. I really liked that person and we had a really nice month and then they ghosted me and that feels terrible. Great. Can we just stop there? Then the next thing I'd say is, where do you feel that in your body? What's coming up for you? We don't feel better because we don't feel. No one taught us how to be in our emotions. And you made me sad. Okay, I could just sit here and be sad. Because it takes 90 seconds for an emotion to run its course. But every time we get the thought process going, you start the clock again.
Right.
So if you actually want to process through an emotion, you actually want to get over somebody, you actually want to move on, then we have to stop treating you as the people that when you were a kid treated you.
Yeah.
That's the only way you move forward.
It's just how you're feeding those feelings. Like the 90-second is the cycle. You can't get over something. You have to get through it. There's no avoiding it. The really unfortunate thing is that when people do go through that grief of this ended, that's a bummer, that's sad, sometimes they do feed that until someone else comes along and they find it again. And it's this vicious cycle.
And that's just reaffirming those core beliefs of
Yeah.
I need external validation to tell me that I'm worthy of something. And I know, I mean, at least for me, like I've literally had therapists where I'm talking and they'll be like, my father's name is Yuri. They'll be like, Yuri, we don't need this conversation. And I'm like, what? And they're like, no. That thought, put it aside. If that wasn't here, what's there?
Wow.
And something that I think is really beautiful to explore is what's my primary emotion? Mad, glad, sad. How am I feeling right now? I'm frustrated. Frustration aside, what's there? I'm devastated. Devastation aside, what's there? I'm sad. Thank you. Okay, you're sad. What are you sad about? Then we can start to look, what's the story that you've created? What's the story you're telling yourself about this? Even as simple as writing a letter, journal, do something to get it out of here and onto paper. It actually activates a different part of your brain. That way you can process things properly and not ruminate and spiral. Because when you ruminate, spiral, and then just go on to the next and on to the next, you're not processing shit. You're just going to replicate that same thing and then you wonder why you have a pattern.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to follow that than it is to break it.
Do you think that hope is just emotional procrastination?
I think that hope is a beautiful thing when there's boundaries around it, like anything else. And I think the pendulum swinging too severely is where we get ourselves into trouble. Because if I have hope, but I don't have grounded, then I'm never going to actually face reality. And if I'm too cynical, but I haven't seen that I don't have any levity, well, then I'm never going to have space for what's to come. So I think we need to find, instead of the pendulum swinging so severely, if you're finding yourself, I'm just hoping and I'm hoping and I'm hoping, well, then I want you to start to ask yourself, instead of hoping, what can I actually believe in? What's a glimmer, right? We know triggers all day of, oh, they triggered me, but what's a glimmer? What's a positive thing in your day of, oh, yeah, it's sunny out. That makes me feel really good. Then that means, right, like there's rain, there's shine. That hope can actually go somewhere. It depends on what we're utilizing and how we're getting that like kind of through our system.
Yeah, it needs to go to like tangible things that are actually a reality or could be, yeah.
Because when I say I hope, it means I don't believe in myself.
Right. So what would you say as a suggestion that people can look out for as red flags when they're in a situation of like, this is fantasy and this is reality?
A couple of things. I think what comes to mind first is I would ask again, like, what is the verbiage we're using? Always, never. They're perfect. They're amazing. Or they ruined me, right? We have to look. I have a client and he'll vacillate. He'll go between the different parts where one minute he's screaming and he's angry and you can see he's allowing himself. And then all of a sudden he's crying going, but he was perfect and he was amazing. And you're like, okay, we're not actually seeing this. We're getting those wounded parts are all coming out right now. And so I would stop and just ask myself, like, what is the verbiage I'm using to describe this person? That's the first thing. Second, what facts do I have to back it up? Oh, they're so thoughtful. Name me 3 things. 3 specific things that make them thoughtful. They're so giving. 3 specific things. They're so compassionate. 3 things. I want you to literally list it out. And the one thing that I think a lot of us need to really kind of start to get really good at is when you're talking to yourself, how would you talk to your best friend? Have a cup of coffee with yourself.
Yeah.
What is it that you needed to hear as a kid that you didn't? For me, it was, hey, there's nothing wrong with you. It's going to happen that people don't like you, but that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't have an adult there to say that. And so when you're dating somebody, we want to look at, are they actually being consistent? What does consistency mean? It doesn't mean that they text you every day at the same time. Consistency means their words and actions align. So if you say you're going to call me, you call me. If you say we have a date, I see you for the date. You have to reschedule, we reschedule, right? It's those very basic things. What is my nervous system like? Am I seeing high highs and low lows? When I'm with them, they're amazing. And then when I'm not, I'm hell in a handbasket and I'm crying and I'm all these things and I'm hyperventilating and I'm hyper-focusing and I'm analyzing the text and I'm sending it to my friends like the FBI. There's a disconnect. The pinch doesn't match the ouch. And so what we want to look for is this person being reciprocal? Do you feel like it's a tennis match? I'm serving it, you're serving it, we're going back and forth. Do I hide parts of myself when I'm with them, or am I really able to be authentically myself? How do they respond to my boundaries? Those are the things what you actually need, you're in a relationship, is someone that holds space for you, someone that you feel safe around, someone that you feel is just a light in your fucking life. And so if that person is feeling dark or dim, then we need to start to assess, am I attached or am I connected? Attaching, childhood core wounds. Connecting, I want you in my life, but I don't need you.
Right. I mean, all such great points. And what that just made me think of is like, is this something that people do too late when they start asking these questions? Like, should they be asking it to themselves with anyone, even if things are going well? It's like kind of the checks and balances that we should have to make sure something's stable.
100%. I mean, to this day, I think a lot of people, they're like, wait, you asked your partner all of these things? Like, first date, I'm like, how'd your last relationship? And what did it teach you about yourself? And his favorite question to ask his people is, what's something you changed your mind about recently and what prompted the change, right? Are you growth-minded? Now, people would, oh, you asked that on a first date? It's like, yeah, motherfucker, I'm not wasting my time. Because to this day, if you ask him, he's right here. If you say, Ryan, why did you like Sabrina? He's always like, because I like the way she showed up. Her question, she didn't care. He's like, she was different. And if you're trying to find somebody that's different, then be someone that's different and hold some goddamn faith in who you are, that if you don't like me, go fucking kick rocks. If I'm too much, don't worry, go find less.
Hell yeah.
That's it. And it's and not waiting too long, but then really looking 80-20. Do they have 80% of what I need and 20% I can let go of, right? Like if he's not 6'5", okay, fine. I can let go of that. But do they have depth? Do they have heart? Do they have soul? Do they have compassion? Do our morals, ethos, and ethics align? That's the shit that we want to be asking. And ask that shit early. Worst comes to worst, it doesn't work out.
Yeah, and I mean, then that begs the lovely question of when to walk away, when the road gets too bumpy, and like cutting your losses early and understanding that it's going to sting and being able to prioritize yourself in that moment.
It sucks. Nobody wants to walk away. I remember meeting this guy, called him the conventionally handsome guy because he was very good looking. I know, I didn't realize that because my mom made it up. And when I told him that, he was like, that's what you call me? And I was like, oh, sorry. I felt like such a dick. But he was a very good looking guy, but he was too charming. I already knew it. This was the guy that to this day, I'm like, I changed the way I dated because of him. And my gut knew, and it was very gaslighty and very like, you need to relax. And I was like, fuck off. Like, stop with that. Instead, take accountability. And I remember he came and we did the whole thing and we spent the night together, and he had lived long distance. We were doing that for like a month and a half. And I remember he was talking about totally deflecting, didn't take any accountability, slept out. It was like a whole thing. And he came to my house the next day thinking that it was going to be fine, that it was going to be no worries. My ass had his suitcase packed, and he opened the door and I handed it to him. And he just looks at me and he's like, but you know I'm emotionally unavailable. And I said, oh, I know. And that's your fucking problem. Now get the fuck off my porch. And I never spoke to him again until months later when we reconnected. Same shit. And I remember he asked me to dinner, and I remember my mom going, you're going to go? And I stopped and I was like, huh? And she goes, what do you think has changed? And I just looked and I was like, nothing. And I said, no, thank you. And I met Ryan 3 months later.
Yeah.
And the reason I share that story is because I cried that weekend. I felt awful. I didn't want to lose this person, but I knew I would be losing myself if I had gone with him. I knew that I was going to self-abandon, and I would be gaslighting myself saying, it's fine, you can handle this. Dude, you're just being dramatic right now. When it's like, no, I didn't satisfy my needs. He was emotionally unavailable. Lovely guy. Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not going to hurt. But what I realized was what I need and what you're offering, way too big of a difference. And the example I give is if I'm looking for a job and I need $100K, if I'm going to take the $10,000 job, my needs are never going to be met. I'm always going to be wanting more. I'm going to be resentful. I'm going to start getting annoyed. And then what do you want from them? Right. You're saying, give me the $100K salary. And they're like, babe, I don't have it. I don't have it to give you. Well, that's how we have to treat dating.
I spoke to myself like that for my entire single life. And I just had a light bulb moment as you were saying that, because I'm like, I spoke to myself that way where it was like, I'm not afraid of getting hurt. I'm not afraid of having my heart broken. So I'm going to keep getting into these relationships. But like, they weren't smart decisions for me to get into those relationships. And hindsight, I am happy that I did because I was able to take lessons from it. But that is not how everyone's bounce back ability is. And like, you know, being able to not be jaded and still accept love and think that I deserve love. But that's exactly how I talked to myself, was like, you're being dramatic. So what, he didn't text you, don't worry about it. But I think my mentality back then was always just like keeping other eggs in your basket until it was time to make that person the only egg, which I think is similar to like giving it time for someone to prove themselves. But
100%. And smart, right?
Yeah. But I did accept a lot of disrespect in that time because I was like, well, it doesn't matter because I'm not putting all of my energy and effort into him. So like he can, you know, go sleep with other girls too. And it's like, nah, that didn't work. And it's like, then you feel even worse. And then we feel like, God, I'm battling myself. It's like, yeah, because look at how we're talking to ourselves. Essentially, you're telling little Emma, who's like, hey, I don't really love this. Could we do something about it? And you're like, hey, shut the fuck up. You're annoying. And what's she going to do? I'm sorry. I had no idea. Oh, okay. And then you wonder why we're disconnected from ourselves instead of, oh, wow, hey, you're right. That's not really cool. You need more than that? Yeah, I think you deserve that. Yeah. And I love what you said about like how you would talk to your friend. I think my eye-opening time was when I started Unhinged, because I was preaching it and then I was watching it. So then I was like getting it back from myself. And I get the advice is not to tell everyone to go start a podcast, but it is that idea of like, listen to what you are saying to your friends, maybe write it down and revisit it one day, put it in a notebook of like advice I gave other people that I need to also receive.
Oh, I do that all the time. I mean, I texted you about that earlier where I was like, I'm working on it, but that's also just being human. There's none of us are going to just like have it all figured out, but that's also part of it. So if I accept myself, then I'm going to accept somebody else with their flaws. And if I don't accept myself, then I'm going to expect perfection from other people. Right. It's never going to fucking work. And then they're just projecting.
Fuck, man.
I know.
Well, per usual, you've just mic dropped throughout that entire episode. I feel like I'm kind of just getting like a free therapy session when you're here. I'm like sitting here just like, oh my God, you're eye-opening my entire 31 years of existence and all the love that I was accepting and thinking that I deserved. And when we first sat down, I was like, we're going to talk about hope. And I was like, that's just so sad. Like this concept of clinging to hope and how it's become this negative thing. We're not sitting here saying you shouldn't hope and this is negative, but it's being able to identify and owning your power enough to identify the difference between hope and optimism, and just identifying the difference between inconsistencies and doing what ifs and maybes because of those inconsistencies. It's like the pendulum swinging is your answer.
100%. If you can just have a conversation with somebody and get clarity,
right.
Then if that person's not offering you clarity and they're offering more confusion, you have your answer. You just don't want to accept it.
And right out of the gate. It's like if you've known this person for 2 days and you're like, well, they're not answering me. They took 12 hours to answer. Done. Like that's
within reason, right? Of course. Like there's some times where I saw even a TikTok this morning and the guy was like, I didn't realize I had to explain this to the people I'm dating, but I'm 34. I'm a fucking adult, to stop treating me like I'm 12 because I didn't answer you while I was at work. And I was like, Yes, baby.
That's
right.
There's
a difference, but
right.
But to your point, if you meet somebody and like I've had it where somebody wrote in and I'm like, oh my God, this all happened in a month. It's like, whoa, too much has happened. You can't bounce back. Yeah. Where it's, well, they said this and then they stood me up on a date and then they said this and then they went out and then they did this and then they ignored me for 3 days and you're like, whoa, dude, you've known this person for 3 weeks and you've already gone through more than like a fucking novella.
Right.
I think it might be time to walk away because what do you think is going to change?
Yeah. Don't accept situationships, guys.
No. Have clear conversations and allow people to disappoint you. Allow them to disappoint you so that you can see who they really are, and then you have a choice that you could decide if you want to pursue them.
You are in the driver's seat. Do not put people up on pedestals. Let them work their way up to 100. No one starts at 100. You know what I do, actually? This is something very interesting that I did when I first started dating Mr. Right. I saw a couple guys out right after I started dating him, and it was almost like the universe was testing me, because I saw these guys that like I had a crush on in the past and I'd always wanted to meet them, and then all of a sudden I was meeting them and I'd already been with this guy and I realized that they were insufferable.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, God, I had you on a pedestal. Like, I really wanted to meet you. And I was like, am I missing out on people by committing myself to Mr. Right? And then I was suddenly shown who they actually are. And it wasn't someone I would have liked. So what I implore people to do, encourage people to do, is like, come up with something in your mind that like you really hate. When you see them and you're like, oh my God, this guy's so hot. Imagine he has really stinky feet. Imagine he has really fucking bad breath or something. Or like if you're jealous of a couple, like imagine that he farts in his sleep or something, where there is something that no matter how hot you are, no matter the potential that I am applying to you without any backstory or information, like there is something that's like, you are better than them.
You want to take someone off a pedestal real quick, make them a real person.
Exactly.
Make them a real person.
Yeah, like humbling them and being like, no, they shit sitting down just like you do.
Just like you, exactly. They put one shoe on at one time.
Yep.
And that's where I would say, list out all of the things that you're like, they're so this, they're so that. Because 99% of the time when I start to do that, at the end, people are like, oh, yeah, you're right. I guess I just really wanted to be chosen.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I liked the idea of them, but the idea of them is not who I have. And anytime you want to talk about really quickly, just to answer, when you're like, do I stay or do I go? A question I ask myself personally that I've asked from the minute I met my partner up until now, because you're a human, is there anything I'm missing that's lacking in this relationship that I feel like I need externally? And I'll stop and I'm like, no, he supports me. He does this. And I'm like, great. So your needs aren't being met. You're satisfied in your relationship. Keep going. Because oftentimes when it's healthy and it's secure, we look for chaos when our nervous system is used to that. Stop creating it.
Boom. Well, on that note.
Let's help some folks.
Yeah. I think that's hitting the tip of the iceberg. Obviously, we can go on about that forever. But for the sake of time, we did have a couple listeners write in with a couple questions. Some of them are very deep. So we just need to do some surface level. And then first, I will give you a little message that someone sent when they said, can you just tell her that she's an icon? And thank you for showing me what is possible.
Oh my God.
So that was just very nice. I want to share that with you.
Thank you. I needed that today.
And then someone else asked how we met. We met through Instagram. Through mutual people. Just to answer your question.
In life.
And then here's an actual one. My ex keeps trying to come back. How do I get over it? I see it's like a big question.
It's a big question.
But
I would say for me, the first thing that comes to mind is remember why you broke up. Right? Like when I hear this, my ex wants to come back, it's like, yeah, because they're regulated now. They saw what they lost and now they're going after a chase. A lot of people do. My question is, what's changed? What have they done anything? Oh, you think that's going to happen in a month? Dream on. Second of all, what would be different now than it was then? My mama has always said, you're not getting back together, you're starting anew. What you had didn't work. So what are you going to do now with new? So that's what I would say is if your ex is trying to come back, what I need you to do is, do you want that? And if your answer is yes, why? And if not, the second thing I would ask is, what are your choices? Do you want to set a boundary and tell them to kick rocks without shoes? Are you done and have moved on? And if you're processing and trying to move on from this, what we want to start to look at is, what's the story that you're telling yourself? What's the story you're telling yourself about the breakup? That it was your fault, that's why it ended. So now that they're back, you're like, fuck yeah, I can figure this out. Or can we stop and say, we ended for a reason and I'm going to leave it there because I know that there's something better out there for me.
Right. If fundamental things are wrong, those are not going to change.
I do not go back to the past. I do not go back to exes. The last time I did it, I ended up being in therapy for fucking 7 goddamn years and brought me to where I'm at right now. And I learned my lesson the hard way. It didn't work the first time. Stop trying to make it work the second, third, and fourth time. Yeah. It's not a flex. There was one creator I saw and she was like, my ex keeps coming back and he always, and I was like, oh, sorry, is that a flex? Get better boundaries.
Right. Oh, yeah. Also like coming back, if he was able to get there, someone opened the door.
Exactly.
Great answer. The next one, also huge topic, but we can try to just touch on it lightly. We have, please, limerence versus actually missing someone. Again, I need help letting go of an ex. Yeah. So this ex doesn't seem like he's coming back, but just letting go of them.
That to me is the fantasy versus the reality, because they are, what I hear is when we have limerence, it's an obsession it's the obsession with somebody. And oftentimes that fuels kind of that hope, what we were talking about. Instead of grieving the reality, this person's holding on to the potential of what they could be. Because if an ex, again, it ended for a reason. Who are they? What's the reality versus the fantasy? I always say the good floats to the top, the bad sinks to the bottom when you have a breakup. And all of a sudden you forget all the reasons you're unhappy. And next thing you know, you're just craving desperately to hold on to this person. And so if we do that, the first thing we need is 21 days, no contact, detox, complete withdrawal. You have the shakes, you have the fucking cries. I don't care. Do it. Go through it. Then what I want us to look at is, again, what are the facts to have to back this up of who this person is? Because limerence, when we're caught in this obsession, dopamine is being released because every time you start to attack yourself, your brain's like, oh, this is good. They want more of this. Let's do it again. And you're reaffirming your core beliefs. I want to know the story she's telling herself about him and the breakup. And then I'd like to understand, is that limerence or actual love? Because if it was love, you guys would be together.
Sabrina wants to know.
I want to know. Right into us. Let us know.
We need more context here. I totally agree. I actually said something really funny yesterday to someone where I was like, I feel like every time I come back to LA, it's like revisiting in my mind a toxic past relationship where I'm like, oh my God, why did I ever leave this place? And I think about all the good times. And then I'm here and I'm like, oh my God, traffic. Oh my God, homeless people. Oh my God, like the people sometimes.
You're like, that's why I left.
Yeah, that's why. I'm immediately reminded. So remind yourself. Well, thank you so much for coming. That is all the time we have here. I am so happy to see you IRL and chat again. If you guys want more of Sabrina, which I am sure you do, please go follow her, the Sabrina Zohar Show, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Her podcast. She's also offering one-on-one courses. If you want some actual dialogue here, she's got them. I know for me, every time I'm with her, I'm like, so highly worth it. Definitely go tap in over there.
Thanks, man.
But yeah.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me be too much.
Please. I mean, this is the temple of too much. Well, maybe that's my name of my
I was like
my group. My daddy gang, my temple of too much. Anyways, thanks so much.
Thanks.
Love you. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like, comment, 5 stars. Anything else you want to ask Sabrina, you can go follow her and ask her or ask me and I'll relay it. See you next week.